What is the significance of the Lord's Supper? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Mark on Walking Through the Bible.
Of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Mark chapter 14. We're going to be reading from verses 22 to 31. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Mark chapter 14, beginning at verse 22. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. And he said to them, "This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many. Surely I say to you, I will no longer drink of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God." And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be." Jesus said to him, "Assuredly I say to you that today, even this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he spoke more vehemently, "If I have to die with you, I will not deny you." And they all said likewise. In this context, we're dealing with the night before Jesus was crucified. We noted in the last episode that this night would be what the Jews called the 6th day of the week, and since the Jewish day begins at sundown, it is what we would call Thursday evening. We also discussed that, contrary to popular belief, this was not the Passover meal, for the book of John, as well as this book, would affirm that that would be eaten at twilight on the end of the 6th day of the week, Friday, just before sunset for us. Nor does it appear that Jesus is eating the Passover early, for none of the Gospels would identify this meal as such. No lamb is mentioned. In the book of John, when Judas leaves, everybody thought that one of the reasons was that he was simply going to buy things needed for the feast, showing us that the Passover is yet ahead. What was this meal? It was simply a common meal, the last meal that Jesus had with his disciples before the crucifixion. So after the meal was over, Jesus did something that would become a pattern for all later disciples of Jesus to follow. He instituted the Lord's Supper. The first thing he did was take bread. What type of bread did he take? Is it possible to know? Well, in our last lesson, we know that this was the days of unleavened bread, and under the law of Moses, all leavening was to be removed from their homes. So the only bread Jesus could have used was unleavened bread. After taking the bread, Jesus blessed it, meaning that he gave thanks to God for the bread. After praying, he broke the bread and gave it to the disciples to eat. As he gave it to them, he said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Now, this wasn't the literal body of Jesus, for he was standing right there. Bread is the symbol used to represent his body. After this, he took the cup. What did that cup contain? Verse 25 says that it contained the fruit of the vine. Now, there are many fruits that grow on vines, like tomatoes or watermelons. So can we know what fruit this is? The Greek word in Mark that is translated as vine is empelos, which simply means vine. So on its face, this doesn't help us. But another Greek word does. The Greek word empelon is derived from the same word as empelos and means vineyard. The types of vineyards in Palestine are vineyards filled with grapes. So the fruit of the vine in the cup is grape juice. Note, though, that it is not alcoholic wine for the same reason that the bread is unleavened, which is that there would be nothing made with leaven in the house, and wine is made using a leavening agent. Upon taking the cup, he again gave thanks and shared it with the disciples. There has been an issue when it comes to the number of cups in use here, but we'll save that discussion for our study of Luke. He said that the grape juice, that which was in the cup, was his blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. So the grape juice symbolized the blood Christ would shed to usher in the new covenant, which brings with it the remission of sins. He concludes that he would not drink of the fruit of the vine until he drinks it anew with them in his Father's kingdom. This shows the disciples and us that what Jesus was doing here was not just a one-time event. It was a memorial meant to be observed by his followers in the kingdom, the church. When we partake of the Lord's Supper, we commune with each other and with Christ, so he is spiritually partaking along with us. After all this was completed, they sung a hymn together and then departed for the Mount of Olives. Coming down to verse 27, Jesus and his disciples are on the road to the Mount of Olives, just outside of Jerusalem. Along the way, Jesus told them that all of them would be made to stumble because of him that night. What Jesus means here is that all of them would abandon Jesus that night. Judas had already abandoned Jesus by this point, but the rest would as well. This would fulfill prophecy, a prophecy about striking the shepherd, causing the sheep to scatter. That prophecy is found in Zechariah 13, verse 7. Sheep follow their shepherd, but if the shepherd is attacked and killed, the sheep will run away in order to avoid being killed themselves. That's what Jesus is saying here. Jesus tells them, though, that yes, he will die, but he will be raised again, and would beat them again in Galilee. Now Peter, being confident in himself, tells Jesus that even if all the others stumble over his death, he would never stumble. It is dangerous to be so confident in ourselves to say that when our life is on the line, we wouldn't do something that we never do otherwise. Jesus told Peter that indeed he would stumble, and proof of that would be that before the rooster crows twice, Peter would deny Jesus 3 times. Again, Peter said he wouldn't do that. He'd die with Jesus, and the others said the same. That is a noble statement for sure, but foolish, as we'll see in the coming episodes. With that, our time is up for today, Lord willing. We hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Mark chapter 14, verses 32 to 42, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.